Fred Kleinknecht, who's the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite Southern Jurisdiction. It starts on page 4 and it runs through page 6. We read at the top of page 4, "I recently heard an outspoken Scottish Rite brother refer to Albert Pike as a debit to our order. Pike, he asserted, in no way benefits the contemporary Scottish Rite. In contrast, Pike's epic work, Morals and Dogma, he thinks, weakens our every Masonic action and causes members to leave our ranks. Sadly, on the surface at least, he is right. Anti-Masonic writers, especially fundamentalists of every stripe, delight in pulling quotations out of context from Morals and Dogma. The first Masonic tactic we see here is to claim that the quotes are taken out of context. This is a very common tactic. The problem of taking something out of context is that the meaning can be misunderstood when writing is not shown in its surroundings. But really, to examine the full context of something, you often have to consider not only the immediate surroundings, but other chapters of a book as well. Sometimes you have to examine other books written by the author, and often books written by his contemporaries, and possibly even examine historical writings. For example, in order to fully understand a given passage in the book of Luke, you have to read it in the context of the verses before and after it. You also have to consider the previous and following chapters. You might have to refer to one of the other gospel accounts or the book of Acts to get the full picture. You might have to refer to the Old Testament prophets also. Often we were able to take a passage out of its surroundings and the meaning does not change. It is still taken out of context, but it is not a problem. The claim that something is taken out of context often is meant to imply that the person who used the quote is trying to intentionally deceive. Let's examine this article written by Fred Kleinknecht in context. Fred is the highest-ranking member of the Southern Jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite. On the bottom of page 4, we see his photograph, and I'm going to zoom in on that so you can get a little better look at his headdress. Can you see the emblem on his head covering? It has a series of vertical and horizontal lines on it. Now we will see a better picture of Fred later on. This is page 6 of the same article, Albert Pike, Debit or Credit, and here's a second tactic which is demonstrated. It must be understood that Morals and Dogma is an expression of Pike's personal opinions. The book does not represent official Scottish Rite philosophy. The tactic is simply to state that the book expresses the opinion of the writer only. We don't believe or hold to those things. That book is not authoritative, and that man is generally not accepted as an authority on Freemasonry. Now let's look at the context. Down at the bottom we read, "Correctly understood, Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma provides our brethren a stimulus to thought, a source of inspiration, and even an aid to Scottish Rite growth. Pike's great work is not the book of an hour, a decade, or a century. It is a book for all time. Abandon Morals and Dogma? Never. The book disclaimed is often the most useful after all." So we see that Fred is talking out of both sides of his mouth here. The Scottish Rite will never abandon Morals and Dogma. We saw on the title page that Morals and Dogma was published by the authority of the 33rd degree. Let's continue looking at the context. Notice the symbol to the left of Fred's signature? That is the same symbol which he wears on his headpiece. It is known as the signal of Baphomet or Baphomet. We will come back to this element of context later when we introduce Baphomet. Looking at the top of the page again, notice that Fred says, "The book does not represent official Scottish Rite philosophy." This is the title page of a book called A Bridge to Light, written by Rex Hutchins. And we notice that the foreword is written by C. Fred Kleinknecht, the Sovereign Grand Commander, and it's published by the Supreme Council of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Southern Jurisdiction, in 1988. Well, let's see what Fred writes in the foreword. Fred writes, "The apex of our teachings has been the rituals of our degrees and Morals and Dogma written by our beloved Sovereign Grand Commander, Albert Pike." Now, just a moment ago, I showed Kleinknecht writing that the book does not represent official Scottish Rite philosophy when he was speaking of Morals and Dogma. So here's another Masonic tactic. They lie. There is ample evidence at this time to support the following. The Masonic Lodge is not a social organization. The Masonic Lodge has a plan of salvation. The Masonic Lodge has a secret doctrine. And we cannot understand Freemasonry without understanding the secret doctrine. What is the Masonic plan of salvation, and how does it tie into the secret doctrine?